What does it mean for one to care for themselves? How does one care for themselves? What does it mean for one to love themselves? How do you love yourself? I began asking these questions about 7, 8 years ago to my counseling clients, whether they were preteens, teens, young adults, parents, adults, and I kept getting the same response back. Nobody's ever asked me these questions before. Has anybody ever asked you these questions before? So I kept asking. I kept getting the same responses back. This went on for a year or two, and I was puzzled but intrigued. I kept asking, and what began to become clear after a couple years is people could have a discussion about caring for themselves, self-care, but the question of what does it mean to love yourself, nobody could answer. So I began to explore this notion of self-care with them. So after tens, if not hundreds of conversations, what began to crystallize out of that is human beings, we have a good understanding of what it means to care for ourselves, self-care. Things like nutrition, exercise, rest, vacations, hobbies, whatever it might be on your list. And if you think in terms of a continuum, 1 being low, 10 being high, we will find ourselves somewhere on that continuum with whatever items we have, no matter how good or not so good we're doing with that item of self-care. We can get that. But it seemed what I was discovering is people were equating self-care to loving themselves. And what I felt and what I was beginning to believe is that self-care is one way that we love ourselves, but it's incomplete. So I kept asking those questions, kept getting the same responses. And then for some reason, 2, 3 years into this, the question popped in my head, too. Nobody had ever asked me these questions. I could not answer, how do I love myself? So very quickly, what happened in my mind is it flipped to, who do I love unconditionally? And then immediately my 2 sons popped in my head. Then very quickly what happened next was, how do I love them unconditionally? I'm grateful that they're in my lives. I forgive them. I show them compassion. I show them kindness. I give them time, attention, empathy. Maybe I'm getting somewhere with this. Then I thought, if I'm going to love myself that way, all I need to do is put the self word in front of those. So forgiveness becomes self-forgiveness. Compassion becomes self-compassion. Empathy becomes self-empathy. Kindness becomes self-kindness. And gratitude is just thankful and gratefulness for our life that we have that is really just a short amount of time. So this stuff kept brewing in me. Hundreds of conversations around this. So now this is trekking. And then what also was happening in my life is I found the yoga mat. And I found the yoga mat at a time in my life where I was at a low. Spent 10, 12, 14 classes a week on that mat. Then in the fall of 2019, a good buddy of mine kept nudging me to shoot marketing videos for social media. For a couple months prior to that, I was giving him a bunch of excuses. Then finally I said, you know what? Thanksgiving's coming. I'll shoot some videos on gratitude. So as I was shooting these videos on gratitude, posting them, I discovered an article about gratitude in neuroscience. Hence, the science in loving yourself. So as I began to study this neuroscience, and I was familiar with it, and what it means, neuroscience, is that there's neuroplasticity of our brain, which means it can reform, reorganize, regenerate. And then it gets into the brain, connection to the nervous system, impulses from the brain through the nervous system up back into the brain. I was captured, my attention. This is cool. Because I had a gratitude practice going on, but I didn't realize it may very well have been reorganizing my brain. So there was this marriage now. Interesting, neuroscience and all this stuff I was learning from probably thousands of conversations with clients. Then when I got into researching forgiveness, compassion, kindness, empathy, I found the same information around neuroscience in terms of the reorganizing the brain. I thought, okay, there might be a science to loving ourselves. So that sat for a little bit. Then all of a sudden this TED application came up around 2019, in November, then December 2019, applied, got accepted. There was a lot of people. It was supposed to happen in May of 2020. It didn't. A little thing called a pandemic happened to us as well. And I think it actually turned us back to ourselves over this time as we were quarantined. So it just bubbled. It bubbled. Now, what I'm going to share with you next before I get into the art side of it is this. I believe what I'm about to share with you next, I believe it with every fiber of my being. And the reason why I do believe that is I've spent the last 30 plus years as a licensed counselor, professional speaker, life coach, consultant, professor, and I only share that because I have done over 60,000 appointments, over 37,000 teaching hours, over 400 presentations from the stage, countless audience members. I have literally had tens of thousands of conversations over 3 decades with human beings, no matter what age they are, about life. Very personal conversations, intimate conversations, deep conversations, profound conversations, real life human conversations and stories that began to enlighten in me the notion of something we all are living, and that is the human condition. What is the human condition? We are born into this world. We come in as an infant. We turn into a toddler, turn into a child, an adolescent, a young adult, and the various stages of adulthood. On one side of the coin, it is all the same for all of us. On the other side of the coin, it is a unique experience to all of us. Now, something else I've discovered about us humans in terms of this human condition is we tend to be our own worst enemies. That proverbial invisible bat that we'll pick up at times or sometimes carry with us and we beat ourselves with. You know the things. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. Whatever. Y'all get that, right? How can one love themselves if they've got a bat? I'm not sure one can. So, the art side of this is simple. As I've been prepping for this, and I'm out on my balcony thinking at times and processing this, talking to the heavens sometimes, come back in. It was a couple weeks ago, came back in and got into a child's pose. Child's pose is a pose of surrender. And the little ping I got from the universe was, don't make this complicated. This is simple. And I do believe it's simple. So what's the art? The art, you want to give yourself a little grace. It's kind of like a little sauce, right? Because we're all living the human condition. It's a wild ride. We have ups and downs, lows and highs, triumphs and victories, defeats and disappointments. We have thoughts, feelings, emotions, our internal world. We move around socially, interact. We move around exploring the world, our external world. It's all the same for all of us. So some grace. Second thing, a practice of gratitude. Simply a minute or two in the morning, a minute or two in the evening, giving gratitude and thanks for all that you have, all that happened during your day. And the research shows in 30 days, there is a reorganizing of the brain, new neural connections are made, impulses are sent down to the heart. Simple to do. Third one, and this is what I discovered. If I would have shared this with you all in May of 2020, this part right now I'm going to speak to, I would not have had. Because when the pandemic hit, I began to do like a little bit of like workshopping or programming with other people around this. So one of the things I asked them to do was a brain dump about forgiveness. I said, hey, get out a piece of paper and just write everything you can possibly think of that you need to forgive yourself for. And this is what I discovered. that for most, it was a little difficult for them to start. But once they started, a brain dump began to happen. And then what next kicked in was that self-talk, right? Where they were beating themselves up or questioning, just all this self-chatter began to happen. Then what I discovered, because of that self-chatter, if we begin to mix in some self-compassion, some self-empathy, some self-kindness, that tend to slow down the self-chatter. And then I simply had them divide that list into two parts. Things they could let go of right then and there, and things that they needed to work on to let go of. Because by hanging on to all of that, and our thoughts, and our heart, and our soul, it weighs us down. It traps our energy. So by beginning to let that stuff go, we begin to literally free ourselves of that burden. Time and attention is very important too. And the yoga mat offered me time for me where I got to know myself, but not only know myself, accept myself and all my amazing humanness, all the good, the not so good, and everything in between. So I want to give this to you to take home. I want to extend a hand to you right now. Hold out your hand like this. Now drop those fingers. Number one, time and attention for you. No matter how busy you are or what stage in your life, taking a few moments each day for you is crucial. Two, and then we're going to make this a circle. Gratitude. Because as you begin to give thanks and gratitude to the world, it flows back to you in these amazing ways. And if you keep it going, it's a circle. And we're going to turn that down because that's your foundation. If you do nothing more than begin a gratitude practice, you will begin to alter your life in the most amazing ways in about 30 days. Number three, and we're going to do like this. Make a peace sign. Come to peace with yourself. That's self-forgiveness. Four is that chatter, that monkey mind when it gets chattering, that self-talk. Pay attention to your self-talk. And if it's not serving you, fifth one's that powerful pinky. You add empathy, compassion, and kindness. Of course, put the self words on front of those as well, too. So I'm going to leave you with this. Because I wondered, what's this old cat going to get up here doing, talking about loving yourself? Right? Well, you never know. There's times in life, things weigh us down. We got to let go of those things that are weighing us down and keeping us from moving in the world. Sometimes we're on a mountaintop. Sometimes we're down on our knees. Whatever's weighing you down, shed it. Get rid of it. Let it go. Drop it. And don't pick it up again. And if you do find yourself down on your knees at some point in your life, it's a lot of times when we turn to ourselves. Don't stay there long. Get back up, at least a little bit. If this whole concept of loving yourself is new or strange, it's okay. When I first went to the yoga mat, I never thought I could do some of the things I can do. I'm here to remind you that you are important. And you can simply turn to yourself right now, begin to love yourself with those 5 things, and turn your world upside down.